Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to our 10th anniversary, 500,000 subscribers live stream. Ask Me Anything. Now, obviously, technically, it's Ask Us Anything, but AUA probably is somebody's registered symbol of something, and it just doesn't. Oh, and I'm hearing myself again, as I often do when I don't turn this thing down. There we go. All right. Uh, there. And now I think I might be hearing it through Manny's. Um, so we'll get everything turned off here except our voices. Speaking of which, I want to make sure that we are loud enough. So I'm bringing up my mic a little bit. Manny, say something to the wonderful people out there. Oh, Manny. Say something. There we go. Basically, I want to test your mic. All right. For some reason, I'm not getting your mic at all. Uh, let me get this fixed, folks. Welcome to the show, Angel, Blanche, Pat, or the live stream. I guess it's not really our usual show. Wolf Girl and YTP Boy, welcome to the show. Let me see if I can figure out why Manny isn't. Yeah, I'm not getting. Luminous, thanks. I figured that out, or I figured out that people couldn't hear Manny, and now I'm trying to figure out how to get that fixed. Yes, this is what we call technical difficulties. Let's try that. Keep doing the do-to-dos. Nope. All right. No, it wouldn't be because I can hear you through Zoom, and people can now hear me explaining to you that it's not on your end. What it might be is well, Zoom isn't muted. Um, Nothing whatsoever.
Ta-da-da-da, ta-da, ta-da,
Nope, still nothing.
ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. Mhm.
All right, folks. Ooh, hold on a second. My mic in Zoom is insanely loud to me right now. All right, folks. This is going to be an interesting. Let's see if we can do this while this Zoom is still up. I am going to attempt to switch us over um, to Skype, which I know the audio works with, and I can do that by completely setting up a whole new. So let's
Oh, just heard me?
Someone heard you?
Oh, yeah, they're saying in the chat that they hear us. Well, hear me.
Oh, cool. Awesome. I fixed it. I have no idea how or what, but
Yeah.
excellent.
So the answer to Greg was the Pink Panther theme. And yeah, that's what I was dancing to. 15 chicken wings. I could at least eat 15, I think,
All right,
before
folks,
I say no more.
tell me what you get from Manny's volume. Is he good? And it'll take a while for them to respond to that.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, this will be a good test of that. So first off, let me explain what we're doing here. We're obviously celebrating our 10th anniversary, which was actually May 23rd, was literally the day that that man, the virtual thing is cutting off my finger. Anyway, that my partner in crime, Manny, founded this organization. All right, cool. It sounds good, according to our friends. And in that time, we've reached the wonderful milestone of 500,000 subscribers. And while we're waiting for some of the super chat questions to come on in, Manny, why don't you tell everybody how this got started? You know, where you had the idea, how you decided to do it the way you did, the early days, the beginning of Nerd Caliber.
Oh boy. Not an easy, quick answer. But May 20th, the reason why I picked May 23rd as the day, because if I remember correctly, May 23rd was the first time we went to GraniteCon 10 years ago. That was our first con we ever went to. And I had a group of three. And Pat Covey was one of the first people we met there. And right now it's amazing how much he has grown as well. And you know, we met up with him and met up some very nice people there. But the idea of Nerd Caliber came about from going to PAX East for the first time. I remember going there, enjoying it, and I was thinking, man, I miss interviewing people, because before that, I used to work for different organizations like Fuse Music Television and a lot of different independent video companies. I would do the account work, I would do some interviewing, and I enjoyed doing a lot. And when I went to PAX East, I saw some of the media that was coming out of there, some of the interviews coming out, and I wasn't very happy with it. And I thought to myself, you know, let me see if I could put my voice out there. Let me see if I could showcase things about the world that I felt like other media wasn't really showcasing. You know.
So, without sort of mentioning what you thought they were doing wrong, tell everybody what you thought was something that you wanted to do differently.
Well, I honestly I felt that there was not enough at the time, enough like Hispanic and Black voices out there in nerddom. You know, I also felt that cosplay wasn't taken very serious. You know, like at least not in the form. What I mean by serious, I mean like looking into it through an artistic lens. I've noticed there wasn't too much of that, so I wanted to showcase that. Uh, that was pretty much my idea in the beginning. Was those two focuses.
And so after GraniteCon and after you know your first con, how did you actually go about establishing what is now the sort of multi-channel Nerd Caliber concept?
Oh, first I wanted to create the website, and that was extremely difficult. I had to teach myself HTML. I tried using Dreamweaver. Eventually, I settled on WordPress, and that made things so much easier. For the YouTube channel, I didn't take it seriously at first. I figured that was just an arm of Nerd Caliber. You know, like whenever I do some videos, I'll just put it up there, but I didn't really thought much of it as a channel. What gave me the idea to kind of really develop it as a channel was when Geek and Sundry and Nerdist were first coming out. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, I like this. I want to do something like that. And that's when I started thinking NerdCal more seriously, as the video section more seriously, and started working on it to develop it to what it is now.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, they only have like 500,000 subscribers too, or something close to that, 5
Yeah.
million or 10 million or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Um, so everybody kind of knows us for cosplay, um, in and among other things, but that's really sort of what people understand our focus is. Um, why did you get the impression that cosplay wasn't being taken seriously, and um, how did that inform the way you were asking questions and interviewing people and so on?
Well, at the time, I noticed there weren't too many people asking cosplayers like how they make their costumes. I was keen to know like how did they make these like wonderful props and these dresses, and I have friends that are into theater that make their own costumes, and after talking to them, we realized at the time there was not enough media out there that showcased that. They just kind of like I don't know. It didn't explain how the process worked, and I also felt that there was some great costumers out there, great cosplayers out there, but they weren't getting enough spotlight. And I've always felt that everyone, cosplayer or non-cosplayer, everyone has something amazing that that uh, that we may not know or we haven't discovered yet. As I'll see this cosplay and I see like this, like sometimes I'm like, wow, that's an amazing wig, or great shoes, or how'd you put that makeup together? And I go up to them and ask them, I talk about their cosplay, and then in whatever they wish to showcase, I give them a window to do so.
Cool. Now, if we don't get any super chat questions, I'm basically just going to keep interviewing Manny, or we're going to talk about stuff. But one of the things I'm going to do right now is first tell people how to do the super chat if anybody wants to do that. And that is, you simply click on the $ button, the gray $ button that's at the bottom of the entire chat window, and put in whatever the amount is you want to donate, and then ask the question. And those are the questions that we're going to be answering while we're on this this particular Ask Me Anything. For the most part, let's put it this way: those will be the questions we're definitely going to be answering first or give priority to. But we certainly would ask, or we'd answer most any other question that's out there. If you're doing a Reddit AMA, Reddit doesn't require you to sort of give money. So you know we're looking to raise donations, and the reason we're raising obviously money for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund is what's going on out there in the world right now, or in the United States anyway. And that is there have been for centuries, or there has been a great need for help with people dealing with the inequality and injustice in our criminal justice system, particularly people of color. And so, given the protests that are going on out there, that it seemed like that was the right thing for us to focus our donation toward. So please give if you can, and if you want to, and also go ahead and ask a question, whether you can give or not. Obviously, like I said, we're not going to gatekeep this just so only people who can give get to answer questions. But if you give, your question gets answered before anybody else. And we've got one other thing, since we're just talking about the creativity and the craftsmanship of costuming and cosplay. We launched midnight this morning, 12:01 actually, the forms and all the information for our joint summer cosplay contest series with Pat Covey himself, who's on the chat right now, the Covenator. An online virtual cosplay contest series, in which there will be 3 qualifier contests, June, July, and August. And then right after the August qualifier, a finals where the 3 winners will go up against each other, and we will crown a champion for the summer. The cosplay contest registration for June is open right now. Go to nerdcaliber.com, and you'll see the page in the page link, Summer Cosplay Contest Series, and fill it out if you want to enter. Capping it at 50 entrants, and the 50 will be determined by a panel of finalist judges. There will be prizes. We're not announcing the prizes yet because, frankly, we're still pulling them all together. But we can say specifically that there will be cash prizes that will be given out for the finals. So, and maybe more, but we're not sure about that. But we know for sure there will be cash prizes for the finals, in addition to all sorts of other interesting and fun prizes that we will let you know about later on. Open to anybody over 18 in North America. And as far as the costume goes, it cannot have won a Best in Show or a runner-up award for the Best in Show at any costume. If you, as a cosplayer, you have won a Best in Show, that's fine. You can't use that costume. You have to use something different. And I think that covers the basics of it. The June contest registration closes June 21st. The contest itself will be live streamed on the Covenanters Twitch and on our YouTube right here on Sunday, June 28th at 6 p.m. So if you just want to watch it and you don't want to participate, that's when it is. But all the information is at nerdcaliber.com. It's at the event that's been created on our Nerd Caliber Facebook page. Covey, did I miss anything? Is there anything else we should let them know? Manny, did I miss anything? On our
Greg asked, what if my costume has won okayest in show?
That qualifies. As a Nerd Caliber associate editor, I'm not sure that, well, I guess you can, because we're not judging. So that's not our role in any of this, and it certainly wouldn't be. So yeah, sure, I guess you can enter. Just want to make sure that there's no sense of the fix is in. But none of yours would have won okayest anyway. They all would have won Best in Show because they're all awesome. So since we still don't have any questions, and frankly, if we don't get any questions after like a half an hour, Manny, how long do you think we're going to go chatting inanely without raising any money?
I don't know. I could go on rants depending on what topics you bring up.
That's true. I think we said for us internally it'd be like a minimum of an hour, so we're probably going to be on here for an hour.
Okay. Greg said, "I'll enter Trunkus and show again."
Yeah. No, well, yeah. Okay. No. Okay.
Yeah.
I dare say you can lose that real easily.
Since Greg is on here, he's watching this. I want to say to him, Greg, thank you for being a part of this. I enjoy your company very much. I love talking to you about music. I love talking to you about your costumes and all sorts of fun trivia stuff that we talk about. And I appreciate. It's one of the best things about Nerd Caliber is that I get to meet and hang out with a lot of great people that I normally wouldn't because I'm extremely shy. Greg, thanks for being a part of this.
Says the man who's been interviewing people for 10 years for Nerd Caliber and longer than that.
Yeah, it's strange because I think I use Nerd Caliber as a way of socializing because I'm really awkward when it comes to group gatherings. I'm the type that there's a party going on and I'm just in the corner and I go to the host or hostess and say, hey, is there something I can do? Can I don't know, serve drinks or something? Because I don't know. Unless I know the person comfortable enough, I have a really hard time reaching out with people. But with Nerd Caliber, I think it gives us a platform where I want to talk about art and they want to talk about art. And we just have great conversations about art. Yeah. So it's helped me out a lot with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're not doing small talk. I mean, you're not talking about the weather or the Red Sox or whatever. You're talking about something that both of you are very interested in.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. And so in that case, it becomes, I don't think you can say that you use Nerd Caliber as sort of a crutch or as an aid for socializing. You have found a way to automatically socialize with people you'd want to socialize. So,
Yeah,
and that's a big bonus. You know, before we went live, we said, you know, one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to thank everybody for getting us to 500K.
and we forgot. Yeah.
And we forgot to do that. So thank you all for getting us to 500,000 subscribers. It's wonderful. It's wonderful that you watch all of these excellent interviews with cosplayers or the skits at conventions. Longer than most YouTube videos. We have a wonderful length of watch time in comparison to the average, and you know we're very proud of that, and we're very happy that you do that for us. So let's getting back onto, we were talking about how everything started.
Well, we could talk about how we met. Well, I remember
Why don't you talk about that? Because, you know, my start with it would be, oh yeah, this guy came up to me. I think the first time I met you was at a
Yep.
steampunk fair.
Yeah, someone, I forgot who introduced us. Someone said, "Hey, this is Rodney, first person shooter," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I've seen the photos. They're great." And then we talked a little bit, and then we talked about like, "Hey, maybe we could do something together sometime," or something like that. And I think was it the first one? I think New York Comic Con was like
Yes.
that year. And I remember one of our first projects together was shooting Jessica Nigri,
Yep.
her Mad Moxie cosplay, if I remember correctly. Um,
That is
and
correct.
yeah, that was great. That was the first time that the website crashed because we put up an article. We did, you know, put a photo gallery of the shoot. I think we posted the video as well. And then there was so many people checking that out, it crashed the site. That's when we realized that we needed to upgrade the site because it couldn't handle that much bandwidth.
Yeah, and it was all because my photographs were so amazing, had nothing to do with the fact that it was Jessica Nigri. Yes, Greg, our eyes met across a crowded costume contest. Honestly, I don't remember that anybody introduced us. I'm sure somebody did, but I remember you coming up to me as I was walking back across the bridge into the park.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you started talking, and it was one of those con moments where it's like, oh, this guy knows me. So literally, I don't remember when we were introduced, but you do. Somebody introduced us, and this is so typical of me. I went, oh yeah, hi, yeah, how's it going? Great. And I was like, okay. And then you started talking. Like, oh yeah, it's the guy with the channel and the website. Yeah. Okay, now I remember. But even then, having been to, you know, a dozen cons, maybe even less than that, probably half a dozen, I was already at the point where my brain was just going, how do I know this person?
Yeah. So, what are some of your favorite videos on their caliber? Anything that stand out to you the most?
So I am a pretty hardcore geek. And while I love cosplay, obviously, I just absolutely adore watching cosplay, seeing how people do things. You know, I geek out about the most obscure costumes, and I love photographing it. Absolutely. Some of my favorite interviews are with creators, because I like hearing about creators and how they do things, not just cosplayers, but you know, we've done plenty of interviews with, you know, comic book writers and artists and so on. Um, and I know for our channel those don't do very well at all for whatever reason. It's the convention skits and the cosplayer interviews that do real well. But I like those. Let's see what else. Some of the other stuff. I got anything that KIA Cosplay did, as Bonnie or as anybody. Those are all absolutely wonderful. Um,
Yeah, Kyle's so talented.
yep,
He does the voice well. He can act well. He does, and it's cosplay work. It's amazing.
absolutely. Just when he was on Covey's earlier contest back at the end of May, um, his cog, Gears of War armor. At that point, sadly, he only had the chest piece, but it was perfect. It was amazing. Um, and his Mojo Jojo and all of his other stuff. He puts his own spin on it, but they're always so creative. It's very cool stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
So when it comes to, it's hard to say. I mean, there's 2,000 videos, over 2,000 videos we've made, so it's hard to say which ones are my favorite. But I would say the first video where I was like, oh man, I can't believe I did this, was when I was able to when we interviewed Leonard Nimoy
oh,
about photography. And I I can't remember how we got that. He was in Springfield and he had a friend. Leonard Moore grew up in Massachusetts, and he had a friend in Springfield that owned a museum or an art center or something like that, and he wanted to showcase his photography there, and he was doing interviews. So I talked to the I remember talking to the museum person. It's like, hey, this is what we do, and I thought they were going to shut us down because we just started and no one's heard of us. And I said, no, come in. And meeting him was very intimidating, but he was so friendly. And I remember that I told the team that I was with, like, hey, don't talk about Star Trek, because I'm sure he was just wants to talk about his photography. But he was just so open. He was willing to hear questions about Star Trek. Uh, he actually called us nerds.
ah,
Uh,
nice.
and I felt like that's like, to me, that's my badge of honor. It's like yes, no more call me a nerd. No one could take that away from me. You know, um, so that to me was the first video that I've done. Like, wow, that was great. Um, the I mean, Bonnie's great. Some of the Harlequin stuff I'm happy with very much. Every Harlequin I've worked with has always been a great experience.
Yep.
All those skits. When I worked with Lauren to do a lot of the like question of the day stuff. I mean, Lauren's such a gifted journalist, and she's so passionate, and I love working with her. Um, but yeah, there's so much to choose from. Oh, we got a donation.
Awesome.
Uh,
Thank you, Luminous. Feel free to ask a question since you are donating. Feel free to ask a question if you're not donating, but yours would be first.
yeah. I have to say also that although I worked with a lot of great people with video, photography wise, I worked with a lot of great people as well. I mean, you, Greg, uh, I mean, Kira was one of the first that I've worked with, and I love her passion. Um, oh, it's been so many since. I love working with Gogo. Gogo's great. She's fearless. She's passionate. I only wish I could work more stuff with her. That's how, it's just, distance is an issue,
Right.
but I hope that changes in the near future.
Distance. She's in such great demand. When we get to work with GoGo, it's awesome. I do have to say, the GoGo Greg team up at the last New York or the one before that. It was the one before that. Was
The Harry
fantastic.
Potter one, the
Hmm?
Harry Potter one where the jelly beans,
Yep.
that was a lot of fun. I'm glad that I was part of that. Congratulations on their caliber. Do you have a favorite trend in cosplay that you observed during the last 10 years? Hmm,
Manny.
favorite trend. Um,
All right. While Manny's thinking, the
that's a tough question.
the first thing that came to my mind is is something that's near and dear to us because of the fact that we do the Cosplay and Photography Expo, New York Comic Con this year. Greg says, "Thank you," um, and that is the growth in available resources and just the fantastic willingness of more experienced cosplayers to show people how to do their craft. Um, and it's not that wasn't something that would have happened at the beginning of the whole cosplay movement if there was a venue or a way to do it. But as opposed to just having things like the replica prop forum, which is essentially, it's a bulletin board type forum, YouTube has broken this thing wide open. And now Twitch, you can watch Twitch live streams of people crafting stuff literally any night. That I think is probably my favorite trend. And I'll have a second favorite after Manny has his.
I'm not sure if this is a trend. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hopefully, I'm understanding the question correctly. But I like when the ups and downs of fandom, when something becomes really popular and then it goes down, and then what comes up afterwards. I'm always surprised by what people gravitate to. Like cosplay, especially gravitate to. Like Homestuck, then Italia around that time.
I think you've got those inverted as to which came first, but
yeah, I think it's one of those two. And then Attack on Titan, and now it's like My Hero Academia. That's really, I've noticed, very popular. So I like to see what a lot of people gravitate to, and then asking them why and trying to explore that. Explore why is this popular? Why are so many people fascinated with this show? And I very enjoy the answers, and sometimes it makes me a fan of the show. Like I'm really into My Hero now. I think so far is one of my favorite series so far right now. So I think that would be my favorite trend.
Yeah, and I have to say, I became a convert after trying the first season, failing miserably, and then eventually letting all of my friends talk me into, no, you got to get through that awful first season. It's great, and it was, and it is, and it was. So my second favorite trend is oddly enough very closely related to what Manny was saying, except instead of enjoying seeing the ups and downs of fandom, I enjoy the fact that fandoms of all kinds have grown to be more accepted in different fan type conventions. So when I first started shooting stuff back around 2010 really, back around the time this channel was started. You'd go to some place like Anime Boston, and people in superhero costumes would just be like super cliquey, and because the weebs, as us weebs call weebs, would just like, ooh, superheroes. Inverse, the same thing with a Comic-Con. If somebody walked up in an anime costume at a Comic-Con, everybody would kind of go like, well, I don't know, what's that? It's a Japanese schoolgirl. What is it? I think that in the intervening years, an awful lot of the fandoms have sort of opened up to each other, and if not melded their interests, or maybe not melded, but at least there's some Venn diagrams there of a lot of overlap. So you no longer see people, showing up at PAX East in superhero costumes and everybody kind of going, why are you doing that? It's pretty much whatever you want to, whatever you want to cosplay at anything that you go to, unless, of course, you're going there to compete and they have particular rules. Like Anime Boston, it has to be Japanese animation. That's my second favorite trend in cosplay over the arc of, well, I would actually, realistically, my involvement with Nerd Caliber has been 7 years. So I can't say over the entire time of Nerd Caliber, but certainly over my time doing cosplay photography.
Yeah.
Hopefully we answered that question for you in enough detail to justify your donation. Thank you, Luminous. But let's keep rolling with this idea. Manny, what do you think was the most surprising trend in cosplay you've seen in the last 10 years?
For trend, I think, and hopefully I'm answering this correctly. I think what surprised me is always when I see creative mashups. Now, creative mashups don't always do well on our YouTube channel, but I don't care. If I see something that I'm like, jaw drop, amazing, some sort of combination that I never would dream of seeing that. I want to talk to that person. I want to interview that person. I want to know everything about how they did that because that to me excites me. It's like almost going beyond what you see and you're trying to craft something that either you thought of or you see an artist put together. Those to me really like excite me when I'm at cons.
Yeah, I agree, and I love mashups. It's one of the reasons why, anybody, if you're into that, if you're as big a fan of mashups as we are, Dragon Con, go to Dragon Con. That's there. There is no con that I've ever been to or ever seen pictures from that adores wildly creative mashups like Dragon Con. But I also think that that point is a good point. It ties into what I was just talking about. I think one of the reasons why you're seeing more mashups is that you're seeing people more willing to express that crossover in their fandom interests. In this case, in the form of actually making a costume that's a crossover. And again, I'm with you. I think I love that. If I see a cool mashup, I'll call it out. If I see one aspect of it and I go, hey, whatever, like one of the very first ones I remember that was at a PAX East, and it was Ash from Pokemon. And so I went, oh, Ash, and it's like, why is he all bloody and has a chainsaw? Oh my God, it's Ash and Ash. But I didn't realize it for the second. I called him over for Ash from Pokemon, and then lost it. I mean, before it was a good shot, then it became, oh my God, this is so cool. So yeah, I agree. That's a good point. I like that. I like that idea. I'm not sure now. While you were saying that, I wasn't really thinking about if I have a most surprising trend. Let's see, most surprising trend. Again, I get back a little bit to the crafting. I think the willingness of people to jump like feet first into something that I would think would just be no way I would ever attempt that, and that's like doing stuff that's really challenging and mostly armor.
Yeah.
So many people out there now in cosplay are willing to just like, okay, well, there are plenty of YouTube tutorials. I can kind of figure out how to do this. I'm just going to go ahead and make this insane armor piece. And I'm like, yes, more people do, or teach themselves sewing. It's the idea that, so many people that I know who just said, well, I have no idea how to do this, and I guess I'm just going to go ahead and learn how to sew. How do you just okay? That's amazing to me, and I love the fact that it seems to be growing more and more in popularity.
I sometimes think about why I like cosplay so much, being that I'm not, I mean, I guess I'm not a costume maker. Um, but I think back to the early days when I used to love like Dungeons and Dragons and similar role playing systems, and the idea of wanting to be something else. And I remember at the time growing up, I lived in the Bronx, and I had a I grew up in a really bad neighborhood, and it was tough. It was very tough for me, and so Dungeons and Dragons and role playing was kind of an escape. The idea of being wanting to be something else, trying to control and fight against your environment. And so when I look at cosplayers, I kind of think of that, and I'm so impressed with their ability to become someone else, and I think the fact that since I'm not a costume maker, the fact that I want to know about it is what drives me to know. It's like how did they do this, and I want to know how they did it, and hopefully it could be shared with other people that are looking for the same type of escape. They're looking for a way to express their art in some way, and hopefully, I'm hoping that their Caliber channel has done that for people.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's cool. I agree with that. For me, I think I've always been a fan of the idea of costuming. But since I grew up in a small town in rural Western Maine, there was no way to express that. There was no venue or avenue for that, and it was hey, folks, I'm old. It was before D&D was invented. So, and as soon as D&D happened, I mean, I was just like in my early 20s that I actually really got bitten by the Halloween costume bug.
Hmm.
And I did for quite a few years, for about 5 years or so, um, go all out in creating just the wildest Halloween costumes I could think of. Um, Generally fantasy related, like an old wizard, like literally with a bald cap and white long hair and so on. And a warrior with a black tunic that was I was still pretty big then, although I was losing weight. But it was half a cowhide, and I used rawhide to sew the sides up and so on. Um, and I loved that. Got out of it when my fiance, then wife, and now ex-wife was, I don't know what the trauma was in her background, but hated Halloween, absolutely despised it. So that became something that I just didn't do anymore, and then never picked it back up again.
Hmm.
But I always loved the idea of creative costuming. I even did a couple of years at the now defunct Maine Renaissance Festival in garb. Of course, now the two-handed sword that I had on a back scabbard is sitting right up against that wall with literally all of my press badges and lanyards hanging around it. So, so yay. Um,
Oh, we got another question.
oh, Luminous, what are some of the best conventions for fans? I've always been impressed with Anime Boston, for example, whereas some other conventions seem primarily focused on making money. Oof, that's a tough question there, Luminous.
Well, well, for I would suggest that when people, because I've had people ask me that question, like what convention should I go to, and I first ask them like what's their they into anime, video games, comic books, and usually whatever the answer is, I always tell them to go to a small convention first, like AEC. Um, I it was to me it's fun because it's smaller. It's more intimate. You get to I don't know. It's not maybe because I just don't like crowds. Like New York Comic Con, I love it and I hate it at the same time. Like I love it because it's just such a you can meet anyone and everyone, and there's so many panels, and the vending room's amazing, and of course tons of cosplayers. But it's so crowded, and I just get really overwhelmed really fast. Well, at a smaller con, I could take my time. There's so many little things I can do, and it's a good way to network and meet people for the first time.
That's a good point. I agree with that. Um, and I think that fits the best conventions for fans. Yeah, that fits the question. Um, so getting to the second point of your question, where like Anime Boston, which is run by the Boston Japanese Society. You know what? I was going to be a staff member of Anime Boston. I should remember this. Anyway, it's run by a nonprofit or a not-for-profit, so it is itself a not-for-profit operation. Um, and yes, there are times when for-profit conventions can seem like nothing but money press machines. Um, Not all of them are like that, and there are still smaller or mid-sized conventions, even if they're not necessarily a not-for-profit, which actually are, I think, a lot more fun and offer the same benefits of a bigger con without being quite so crowded and busy. And a perfect example of that for me is Baltimore Comic Con.
Hmm.
Baltimore Comic Con has the biggest names in the comic book world. They're not necessarily going to get the comic adjacent world like MCU actors and so on. But if you're a really big comic book fan, they will have the biggest names in the comic book world. They're guaranteed. And they draw an awful lot of the cosplayers in the greater DC area, all over Maryland, DC, Virginia, and so on. And it's not that huge a con. It's in, or was, I don't know if they're done fixing the Baltimore Convention Center. I haven't paid attention in years, but it was in the Baltimore Convention Center. And unlike Otakon, which is just, packed it, Baltimore Comic Con, there was plenty of space to move around, um, while still getting the impression that you were at a decent mid-sized con. And there are plenty that are out there like that. Um, the problem with giving out individual specific recommendations is it seems like we might be dissing others. So what I would do, like obviously, we would go on, I would go on anyway for hours and hours about Granite State Comic Con, which Manny already mentioned. Um, you know, I love the con. I love the people that run it. I think it's fantastic. But that isn't to say that others aren't wonderful conventions. So what I would do is if you are a fan of whatever particular fandom type con you want to go to, find other people who have been to that con online or wherever and just ask them questions. How does this compare to blah blah blah? How did and ask a bunch of them, because everybody's got to going to have you're going to get this one personal axe to grind about every con. And that person is going to just say it's awful. Oh, this happened, and sometimes horrible things happen. You don't want to dismiss that, but you want to get a wide enough variety of responses that you can say, okay, well that sounds right. That sounds like what I would want. Or obviously, you can always DM us. If you do it at Nerd Caliber, we're not going to badmouth anybody unless it's a con that had serious problems, and we've written about those, which we have. But if you know us personally, never hesitate to ask about, what do I think about this con or that con. And hopefully that answered your question. But the general thing is ask around and start, with maybe the smaller mid-sized cons, and see how much fun you get out of those. Now, having said that, Manny, in the last, actually, this is a good way to do it because it won't call out any con specifically. In the last 10 years, what was the most fun con you had, one specific con weekend, in a small con and then a big con?
The most fun I've had.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you don't have to give the specific details of what it was, but you can if you want. But just like, oh yeah, this con, 2006 was amazing, or whatever. Well, it wouldn't be 2006 now, would it? Because that'd be 14 years ago.
Well, let me share at least the most the one that stands out because it was definitely a different experience. OhioCon, 2013 for small cons was the most stands out to me for small cons. Not because it was fun because I got to meet a great Joker cosplayer there, and also I got to meet KIA cosplayer for the first time, which he was Deadpool at the time, and we just became great friends, and we just together since then we've always tried to create great content together. And it was interesting because when I went to OhioCon, I don't know what possessed me to go. It was like almost like a day's journey to get there. I went on my own. I had two interviewers set up to meet me there that I met through the OhioCon's forums. And once I met them, after 5 minutes with me, they decided, no, I can't do this. And I started panicking a little bit because I was like, oh man, I came all this way and I have no interviewers. What am I going to do? And I remember one of the first people we interviewed was this Joker cosplayer, and he was very charismatic. And when my interviewers disappeared, I was thinking maybe we ask that Joker cosplayer who wants to do something, and I did, and we had a great time. And then he said, hey, tomorrow, the next day, he said, hey, I want to bring a friend along. I said, okay, he's a Deadpool cosplayer. I was like, yeah, let's do something. And then that had to be KIA cosplay, and we had a great time. That saved the weekend for me. And that stood out to me as when it comes to small cons, a very exciting moment. For large cons, nothing. Personally, for me, nothing beats it's either Gen Con or PAX East. Just because I like gaming a lot. I like seeing what independents have created. I like to see what the bigger companies have made. and and um and I always like seeing like again I love D&D. So when I see a D&D cosplayer, I just get really excited, you know. And but yeah, those. What happened for you? Anything small con, big con that stands out to you?
So I'm trying to remember the small con. I just had a particular idea and then and forgot about it. But big con, it's a tough one. But I think I'd have to say that first New York Comic Con that I shot for Nerd Caliber. Because back then I was doing featured shoots, sort of like we have Greg do that mostly for us now at cons where I'm there and Greg's there, mainly because Greg's really good at it. And I want somebody to also be the photographer of record for as much cosplay as possible. So that's why I do what I do. Um, but I was doing more featured shoots, and of any single convention, I think the quality of stuff that I got out of that has not. I have not reached that again. Um, and that was Alexia Jean Grey and Jessica Nigri and Anna Mia and Miss Kit Quinn, um, and all of the shoots were it's like, hey, maybe this will work, and it worked every single time. What I had in mind for lighting and where to do the shoot and everything worked, and nothing's been that just complete lay down successful one right after another. That's not to say every shoot was successful. One of the shoots I did with Anamia was pretty boring. That's all on me. Um, but everything just really came together, and so that's one of my favorites. And of course, it's related to photography because why not?
Hmm.
Um, Small cons, I don't know. I just love all the small cons, but there's none I can't think of that really sort of stands out, except, and I guess it'll be fair to call them a small con at that point, but Granite State Comic Con in 10 years ago. No, it was 2011, I think. Um, it was the first time I met so many. Holy crap! Sorry. Uh, Thank you, Greg. That's wonderful. A fantastic donation from Greg. And Manny, I'm going to let you read the question as soon as I finish with this. So I'm going to say Granite State Comic Con 2011. The first time I met so many of the people that I consider, my really, really good cosplay friends, convention friends, and just friends in general, at that con. Um, and it was a ton of fun. Um, uh, my photography there was meh, but just the experience itself, was fantastic. And so yeah, that's it for me. So what is Greg asking?
Cosplay and cons are pretty inclusive, but attendance often skews toward white people. Any ideas for how cons can encourage more uh, like POC? I'm not sure about the BIPOC. Um, oh, BIPOC to participate and make the experience more inclusive and diverse. Um, just so BI and BIPOC stands for.
I don't know.
Hmm. Well, I'll stick with POC.
There you
Hopefully,
go.
um, I would say get more guests, more Black guests, POC guests. Definitely more writers, artists, actors, actresses. Um, I definitely have panels run by POC. Like every like not every, but like some cons where they have some POC guests, they do panels, and those are pretty attended. Have a good crowd. Um, I think that's just I think they should that would help. Um, Maybe support other smaller cons that are very uh, 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 have that are they're inclusive cons. Like for example, we were going to go to that Comics of Color event in April before COVID hit. Unfortunately that changed that, but I was hoping we could promote that and be there and get that name out, get their name out. Um, I think that's what cons should do. What do you think?
So before I say that, I want to preface. I think your impression is accurate depending upon what con you're talking about, and it always just pleasantly amazes me the drastic change in the ratio of. Oh, hold on, you're being hidden for some reason. Greg, let me show. Black, Indigenous, and people of color
Oh, I see.
um, is BIPOC. Thank you, Greg. When I get to certain cons in certain cities, it's amazing how completely different the representation is than um, here up in New England or even down in Florida. Down in Florida, like at MegaCon and so on, you would think that there'd be greater representation in a state that has a more diverse population like that. But for some reason, Florida seems to be a little bit more um, perhaps divided in nerd communities. Then you go to Philadelphia or New York, particularly, or anywhere in Jersey or any of the cons like that, and even a con like Wizard World Philly, the representation there is just it's completely different than it is in New England. Even New York Comic Con is so drastically deeper in its representation of people of color than than most of the cons up here in New England. With and this just absolutely blew my mind. With the exception of LeakyCon, the Harry Potter world focused convention LeakyCon sort of travels around to different cities, sort of like the various celebrations. When it came to Boston 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago now, um, it just blew my mind how many wonderful families of color in their, Hufflepuffs and Slytherins and and Gryffindors and all of their colors, or their costumes, or just what were walking through that convention center. Um, that blew my mind. Um, but anyway, so how do cons get to be more like what you can experience if you go to like Wizard World Philly or Great Philadelphia Comic Con? Um, I don't know that I have any answer that would be different than what Manny says, other than in addition to having guests of color, whether they're cosplayers, whether they're stars, whether they're creatives, make sure that those people are always, well represented in that con's promotional and marketing material. You know, it eventually, if you have this, fantastic representation in your guest list and so on, then within the people of color nerd community, you're eventually going to be discovered as that kind of convention, that more inclusive convention. Don't wait for people to discover it. Put it right out there. Make sure that's right there, smack dab in all of your promotional and marketing material. But yeah, I think that's really the only other answer, or the only addition to Manny's answer that I can think of. Because I don't think there's any other. I don't know that there's any cons out there that have any overt, and certainly they wouldn't last long if they did, sense of gatekeeping around people of color. But there can certainly be very sort of under the surface levels of that, expressed in things like essentially all white marketing. Yeah. So, and there's another in the marketing. You can tell I've worked in marketing before. In the marketing, reach out to the venues that these people the people of color, these people. Jesus. I'll just leave now. Thank you for laughing, Manny. That people of color are more attuned to. So if there is a newspaper that has a wider representation, and again, I'm old newspaper, or a television channel, or a YouTube channel that has a wider representation in its audience among the communities of color, make sure you reach out to that particular entity, that news entity, instead of just sort of blasting your stuff out there and then maybe focusing on your local paper of record or your local TV station that's, number one in the ratings or something like that. So yeah, there you go, Cons. Market yourself to the communities of color.
I do want to say, and I know time is running short, but I do want to say that that I'm really happy that Nerd Caliber is very inclusive. Our interviewers are diverse. Our team is diverse, and we try to put our content out there as diverse as possible. I always make sure that our team becomes aware of when it comes to looking for cosplayers, to look for cosplay as a matter like size, gender, race. That I make sure that's not an issue for our team.
Yep.
Or they just get the boot.
It's like our marketing material currently available in the merch store down below here in your YouTube thing. Every cosplay is Nerd Caliber approved. Although I had to, after all of the events of the last few weeks, except Nazis.
Yeah.
Don't be cosplaying Nazis, folks. That's
stupid.
stupid.
No blackfacing either. Please.
Well, yeah. Any sign a sign of ethnic makeup.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Just don't do it. We have reached an hour. We had 2 questions. We could go for 2 more or another hour and get maybe 2 more questions. But I honestly think that we've pretty much reached the end of this. What do you think, Manny?
Well, no one's asking anything, so I guess that's it.
All right. Greg, Luminous, thank you very much. Manny, I think I'm putting you on the spot here, but can we kick up those 2 things so that our minimum donation is at least $100?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to take yours and then add to it, and our minimum donation will be $100 to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. It's not huge, but every bit helps. And thank everybody else who tuned in, anybody who was there on early, and thank you all 500,000 of you who are subscribing to our channel and watching our videos. We never on our live stream, this is on me, say like and subscribe. But like and subscribe. And thank you for doing that, even if nobody ever tells you to.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we appreciate your support, and stick around. We'll see what happens in the next 10 years.
There you go. Assuming we have a country. Sorry. Anyway, thank you all, folks. Check out the cosplay contest, the summer cosplay contest series. Check us out tomorrow. We'll be back with our live show. We skipped a week for Blackout Tuesday. We'll be back, and guess what? There's enough news that it's all going to be focused around Black Lives Matter protests or Pride Month. Plenty of stuff out there in the nerd world to fill in just those related topics in nerd news from the past 2 weeks. So tune in tomorrow night. We'll see you later, folks. And again, thanks everybody for your support.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Take care. Be safe.
Bye.